children. And I will strike down upon thee with great vengeance and furious anger those who attempt to poison and destroy my brothers. And you will know my name is the Lord when I lay my vengeance upon thee.
Alright, so I want to take time to show you so far what I've done and stop just shy of finishing that area, because I wanted to just talk about where I am and why I stopped there, and just how I think you should be viewing this, and the way that hopefully you would be working. So when we look at the values that I was talking about earlier in the last video, you'll notice that over here it's darker, and it pretty much is kind of like goes around like this and like that, and then it becomes a lighter shade. When I see that over here, it's not happening that way. It's darker, but darker much further into the eyebrow area, about right there, which is about the corner of the eye. So if I went vertically from the corner of the eye upwards, it would be around here, which, as you can see, is the border where I stopped. So I need to make this darker. Now, why do I say that? Because I'm analyzing. As I'm putting down material, and you can see how I did like a light tone using the HB Hard General's pencil. And I'm using only the General's pencil, General's charcoal pencil. The HB Hard with very little pressure. If you see, I hold my pencil like this. This is a brush, but I'm just trying to show you this, how I hold it. It prevents a lot of pressure, whereas if I was holding my pencil like the way you write out a check or something, it applies way too much pressure. So in this area, I went with the layer of that lighter HB Hard, and I knew it wouldn't be dark enough, but it's better to be safe than sorry. So what I do is I'll put that in and then decide, well, it definitely needs to be darker. So then I go to the next step, which would be the medium. And so, as you can see right here, it says medium. This is the one I was using to do the majority of the work up to this point, the HB Hard. The HB part is kind of rubbed off, but you get the idea. There's another one that says extra hard, or EX hard. That's different. That's even lighter than this. So I don't use that. Occasionally I will, when especially when I'm drawing on light paper or white paper like this. But in this case, I didn't have it, and this is just fine. It's what I use 99% of the time on 90% of the work that is laying down on my paper. But I start with the HB Hard, and then I said, it needs to be darker, so I started moving up to the medium. And it still wasn't dark enough in some areas, like in the eyes, and what I eventually do on the edge of the head and by the ear, and I moved up to the 4B soft. Okay, so the soft, and then there's even another level that's darker than that, and that's the darkest one they make in those pencil kits you can buy, which is the EX soft or extra soft. So this is a 6B. So this extra soft is darker than the soft. Okay, so just remember that. I haven't used the extra soft yet because that's probably just gonna be a humongous mess. But I moved up to the soft when I was working on the iris. So I'm gonna pick up the medium, and now that I made that, basically what I want you to take from this little segment is start lighter than you think it is. Okay, lighter than what it actually is, so it fits much darker. That's okay. You can quickly darken something. It's not a lot of work to darken something. It is a nightmare to lighten something. Once it becomes dark, it is a real nightmare trying to make it go the other way. Trying to lighten it is not impossible. It's just, you know, why would you want to work that hard? It's better to go down lighter and then start making it darker. And it just lets you work a little slower, but a heck of a lot safer, much better way of working than saying, well, I believe it's that darkness or that amount of black or whatever, and then say you guessed wrong. Now what are you gonna do? If you guessed wrong, now you gotta make that really dark area really light, or much lighter than it was. And as you can see when I shade, I'm just holding my pencil like this, and I'll usually have my pinky out like so, just to anchor my hand, or a lot of times I'll use the knuckle of my pinky just because it's more comfortable. That's me get down lower, so I get a lower angle rather than this. You don't want to be stabbing at the paper. It'll just wear down your tip. This way you use more of the tip when you lay it down like this, and it keeps the pencil sharp. So you don't have to sharpen so often. And so now I'm using the medium. Okay, again, I started with the HB hard. Wasn't dark enough, so I'm going over this with the medium. And you don't want to get frustrated and say, oh my God, I just press harder. When you press harder, you come up with just worse results, okay? You're gonna leave all kinds of scratches and dents in your paper, and you don't want that. So don't press harder, especially for you graphite artists. Okay, so it's not coming out as dark as I want. So now, because I believe it to be even darker than what it is, I believe that's actually pretty close, but let's just say I wanted to go darker. And I can't. I go really lightly, and I'm going over this with the soft. And really, I don't see this going into anything darker than the soft. This will be as dark as I get. And I'll just add more material. And you can see, if you rewind the video, just go back a little bit, what it looked like before, kind of like get an after, a before and after sort of effect. Now this soft, being soft, it doesn't really get into the fibers of the paper. And what ends up happening is you'll end up having the issue of the material sitting on the surface. So what I like to do is I'll blend it in. I don't just apply charcoal and leave it alone. Especially when I'm working with the soft or the extra soft or even the medium. And the reason is it's so dark and it's literally soft. Okay, that's not just a designation, it's actually softer. It sits on the surface and it just makes it much easier for it to smudge and ruin your drawing. So I don't just apply it and leave it alone, I go right into blending it out. That way it really gets into the fibers of the paper and prevents any real bad smudging to appear. And so there's that. And I believe that to be a pretty fair assessment of this particular portrait of this gentleman here, Samuel L. Jackson. Now, like I said on the last segment, it takes a long time. I don't remember how long it took me to draw the actual, the actual drawing, the design of this. It didn't really take me that long. It was the shading that takes me the longest. And I worked on this just to the point you saw at the beginning of the video for probably around I don't know. I want to say maybe a good hour or so, maybe more. And just laying it down little by little, being patient, trying to give myself the look that I'm going for, but doing it very slowly. And so there I'm applying just a little bit of material. I got my round brush so I can get into that tight little area. That's why I love the kneaded eraser, because I got two of them. I got one that's all, there's a brand new one because I couldn't find this one. So I had opened up a new one. It has a nice little sharp corners when they're brand new. But here's one of my really old ones. It's all real dirty and nasty. Just fold it back on itself a few times and it'll clean up for you if you get it, really dirty. And the reason I'm always telling people is that this right here is better, the kneaded eraser, rather than a hard eraser, is because a kneaded eraser, look at this, I can go into this little tiny tip, see that? And that allows me to get right in there, and it doesn't damage the paper. It's not really aggressive, as opposed to this, which you see me use this into a little tight area. It's hard, right? You see how stiff that is. So I do use this, but I don't use it in large areas, just for like little highlighted areas that I need to just remove. For example, around the eye, I see there's a little scratch there. Little tiny areas. You don't want to use this extensively. I've seen people do that, and you just wear this out. That's just dumb. Plus, this is like a really hard material, so it potentially damages the surface more, versus a kneaded eraser doesn't do any damage. And now I'm looking at my values, and I'm starting to compare them. And let's look at what we have up here on the photo, right? So here's our subject. When I turn the lights off in here in this room, it actually looks like this becomes quite a bit darker and hard to tell these little segments of light, as opposed to my drawing where I see them very clearly. And so by turning out the lights, obviously I'm not talking about making it pitch black in here, but just, I got my TV on and just the little bit of window light or something like that. But relatively dark in here, or darker than what it is. It lets me see the comparison much easier. So it's a really great way by just turning out the light, because then I can see the stuff that shows up really bright over here will show up much better when I turn the lights off, and I can make a comparison. And I noticed that a lot of this information right around his eye area right here, when I turn the lights off, a lot of that was gone, or just a lot harder to see, right? But on mine, it was still very evident. It's still very clear to me. Okay, so I said, wow, that tells me right there that this area is still too light when compared to, for example, the eye, which in this particular case, his eye is much brighter. So I'm going to take this already dirty brush with this material that I was blending out earlier, and I'm just going to bring it into this area right here where that light is, but that isn't as bright as a paper. Okay, it's not as white as a paper. And I'm just going to push that brush in there and just kill some of that white, and then up in here, because it was just way too bright in there. And you see me use this brush quite a bit, or maybe this brush, the number 2 round, or a number 2 filbert. You can use a flat, whatever. And sometimes you'll see me use a stump. This is a little bit more aggressive, so you can almost draw with this. So I don't use the stump as much when I have a light colored paper, because it's almost a little too aggressive sometimes. But I do use it in conjunction with my brushes. It's one of those things where they go back and forth. If I see an area really needs to be blended in, and I need to be a little bit more aggressive, I grab my stump. But if I can just do a nice little feathering of that value, and I don't want to go that tough with it, then I'll switch over to my brush. And so you can see how little by little it's starting to match the values that I see over there. Now, I still think that this area right here needs to be a bit darker, so I'm going to layer on And again, I'm back with the HB hard. Always picking up the HB hard because it's lighter and therefore safer. Just so I can get a little bit more material down before I continue. And just kind of, sometimes, especially with the HB hard, it'll, as I'm sharpening with my blade, I'll work, and I'll sometimes have like a little rough spot, just a little spot that, you know, I can feel it on the surface, feels scratchy, and it doesn't seem to come off as readily as another spot. So I'll twist it. If you ever see my hands, you know, if you see me doing this, it's because I hit that little rough spot. And then what I'll do is I'll go to my little garbage can and I'll just do this and try to sometimes get that little rough. I don't know what it is. I think it's just some sort of impurity or something that, you know, fell into the container or whatever it is that they use to make charcoal pencils, and it just has this little rough spot that it doesn't want to let the material come off. So I'll just sharpen through it, and that usually works. So here's a part of the drawing where I want to go back to using this. Now I'll see what I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. So right in this tear duct area, he's got this little highlight, a little line, just like that. Boom, a little tiny highlight. And that was easily done with this because it's a nice stiff eraser, making it much easier for me to get in there. Makes it much easier to get in there. And I feel like the bags under his eyes weren't big enough. I didn't drop them down big enough. I did them a little too thin, which I believe was taking away from some of the likeness. And I don't know if the video shows you the subtle gradations in the values here, but I hope it's showing up. Sometimes you probably can't tell, but right under here, underneath his eye, there's kind of like a little blotchiness going on, some defect with the paper, who knows. And so I'll switch over to this stump, which is, like I said, it's more aggressive all on its own just because of the nature of the material. It's just a tougher, harder material than the brush. And you can see I'm just drawing this little tiny muscular area that's popping out just a little bit. And I don't know if you guys can hear in the background, there's like some kind of hammering going on. So I apologize for that. I can't do anything about it. I'm actually at my mom's house, and my old man is, I don't know what the hell he's doing. He's retired, and he doesn't have anything to do with his time, so he goes banging on things, fixing stuff, because he's got nothing else to do with his time. So I don't know if you can hear any knocking around, but that's what that is. I apologize for that. And so you can see how slow this process is, comparatively speaking, when you compare it to, you know, say the actual drawing and the design, trying to get the proportions right and all that. Now I know some of you out there looking at what I'm doing and you're like, oh my God, he's doing it so much faster. Well, remember, yeah, I can work faster than some of you. And that's just experience. That's all that is. Nothing amazing about what I do. It's just experience. And then as you get experience, you will be doing things faster by nature because you understand, not because you're actually trying to move fast. And I'm not trying to move fast. I never move fast. I just move at whatever speed naturally comes out. That's really how you want to handle this. So what I did off camera before I started shooting this part of the video, I started doing some of this area over here, and he's got like this reflected light. Basically, he's wearing like, it looks like a white or dark or a light gray or something jacket. I don't know, it's a black and white picture. And it's reflecting as the light hits, being a light color, it reflects back into his jawline, and it gives you this little shine. And then late last night, I was looking at it, And I said, man, these are white charcoal marks from when I was just kind of trying to determine some stuff. So I think I made a mistake of believing that that charcoal turning gray on me because it's, on top of this black ink. It's not actually reflected light. It was actually just me outlining the jaw with some white chalk. But it gave me, even though it's a mistake, it did give me this really interesting area, and I can cover it back up, no problem, where you got this jawline right here, and then I just dirty it back up because all I did was I took this, my little clicky eraser, and this is from Generals, okay, same people that make the charcoal pencils, and I just erased out a little line. I just erased it out a little bit so you can see it. Now that would be just too bright for that area, and so you want to go back in and just dirty it up, and that pushes it back, and so it looks lighter but not bright light. Remember, you don't want anything as light as the eyes in this picture. That's not always true, but in this particular drawing, his eyes just happen to be the absolute brightest thing. So I may keep that mistake, because that's essentially what it is, because here that actually isn't there. I may keep my little mistake, or I may go over it and just fill it in. I'm not sure yet. I'm kind of liking the way it looks. I think it adds a little bit more interest. But it's not his real jawline. His real jawline is actually what I'm drawing now, right here. That's his actual jawline, making that light area incorrect. So if I decided to keep it, you know what, I'm just gonna fill it in right now. I figured, what the hell, I'll show you how to fill it in. Say you got an erased out little area and you found that's a mistake, like something I did. I go right into the center of it and I just add, in this case I went over to my soft, and I'm gonna go all around it. This is another reason why you want to work a little lighter, as I was saying earlier, than what you ultimately want it to be, because that mistake was done when it was lighter. That means the whole thing, including that little erased out area, needs to become darker. And so together, you can bring them both up darker. If I would have had this at whatever amount of darkness it was supposed to be, say pitch black, and then I had erased it out, it would be not impossible, just harder to get that particular area to match up with the surrounding area, just because it wants to stay erased out. It wants to be different. And so I use my stub because it's a little bit more aggressive, so I can make sure that material is in there. I also want to point out comfort. If you're not comfortable, physically comfortable, okay, the way you're sitting, the way your chair is, whatever, you're going to make mistakes. One of the things that I do for comfort is I'm right-handed, so I'm working from top left to bottom right. If I had done the opposite, say I was working this way, my hand would be sitting over all of the work that I did, and I'd be smudging things all over the place. Okay, I'd be giving myself a heck of a lot more work than was actually necessary. So a smart way of working is, if you're left-handed, work from top right down this way to bottom left, if it's possible. Okay, sometimes, that's not a hard, fast rule. It's just if you can. It depends on, maybe you're doing a background or something else. But I generally work this way. And that way, my hand is only over some light sketching rather than over a whole bunch of charcoal. Can you imagine what this would look like now if it had all this shaded in? All the work I did shading would just be obliterated. And it would just be a lot more work. So what I do, sometimes I put a napkin under my hand, and I'll do that when I do end up having to do that. So let's go into this area and make it a little darker. I went up to the, I'll do it with the HB hard, but then I went up to the soft. And I'm not pressing hard. I never press hard. Ever, ever, ever. I never press hard. It's never been a good thing to press hard. I've never had anyone press hard, or I've never pressed hard where it's actually worked out in my favor. It's always been bad results, because then it makes it so permanent that, wow, now you're stuck with that decision. And if it's a bad decision, you're kind of screwed. And so by blending it out, it lets me go into it again with the soft and make that darker, because his eyebrow is slightly darker than the skin between his eye and eyebrow. That little area gets bridged. It's like a bridge between one space and the other. It can stay blacker than this little area. So I'm just gonna make that a little bit darker right there. And I'm not pressing hard. I don't have to, because this is a soft. It wants to come out dark whether you like it or not. And so now I'm gonna blend that in. And notice these little strokes. I like doing these little strokes because it makes it look more like hair. Those little tiny, even though it's little tiny details, I doubt anybody gonna see unless you get really up in there. It's definitely good practice. As I'm blending, it's getting dirty, and so what's happening is I'm actually drawing with it, like this little wrinkle up here. I'm actually drawing with it. I'm moving the charcoal around, just like you would wet paint on a canvas. I'm just moving it around. And for right now, I want to call that area done, but you're never actually done because you don't know until you finish producing the whole thing, because things they tend to look kind of done and then they're not done because you have to now lighten or darken an area or whatever. So now, just adding a little bit more dark along that edge, just to see how it looks. I believe it needed to go darker anyways. And it's looking good. It's helping this area to really get recessed and pushed back into the paper, pushing away from us. And again, we're not pressing hard. You got that nice dark gray with a nice gradation of this dark area going into this slightly lighter area, going into this much lighter area. Just like I said, yes, the last video, talking about him and talking about values, all these little zones. And you'll notice I haven't used my finger. I haven't tried to finger this thing to death, you know, doing this thing. Don't do that. Don't use your finger. You got a bunch of oils. You'll just ruin your drawing. And you get all kinds of weird blotchy spots. And you'll be wondering, why the heck am I getting that? That's because your fingers are transferring oils and sweat. And my hands sweat a lot. So if I get hot, I'm not hot now, but when I do get hot, I just put a napkin under my hand to prevent any sweat and excess of oils. If you have that issue, make sure you just put a napkin on your hand, you're good. That's all you got to do. Now this ear has some nice light spots, but for the most part, the majority of it is relatively dark. If you look at it, really the ear only has a light spot right around this area, here, and that little tiny area right there. So I actually got to go in and darken that ear quite a bit. So I hope that this segment was useful for you. I'm going to stop with the talking and all that, and I'm just going to get in there and start drawing or shading. The drawing's already done. And I'll make sure that you guys get this drawing, or that I get this drawing done, done for you guys, so you can use it as hopefully something educational, and that will teach you something about shading. And just remember, don't get frustrated, okay? You're gonna get frustrated. Accept that you're gonna get frustrated. Accept that you're gonna be there a while, okay? Just make that knowledge that you understand. I will be here a while, a long while, and just accept it. You know, it's just one of those things you need to just come to terms with and deal with it. What I find is that when people try to just, they're either trying to reinvent the wheel, or they're usually trying to speed something up. You know, there's a reason things get done a certain way, and it's because it works. But there's always going to be that really special individual that thinks they're smarter than the average bear, and they're going to be the ones that are going to discover this amazing, super duper fast way to do what everybody else takes many, many hours to do. And of course, that doesn't exist. There's just no way of speeding this up. And what those people end up doing, those are the people that buy every freaking video and spend money on every book ever written, and they're constantly on this permanent trip trying to find that secret from some, you know, guy with a long beard sitting on the top of a mountain kind of thing. Like, that guy is going to be the one that he's going to just, you know, he's going to just reveal the secrets of drawing, and you can do everything in an hour, and it just doesn't exist. Okay, if you're going to build a house, even if you're really, really fast and you're really, really good, it's not going to be done in a day. A house takes months, period. They take months. You just can't build it in a day. It's a freaking house. So you need to come to terms with that and just say, well, I'm going to be here a while. And if you're just one of these really impatient people, well, he's not really teaching me anything I don't already know. And, you know, because they think they know everything, that type of person, you know. And they want to go into this other class and that other person and this other place and this other thing and read this book. And that's great, you know, explore many different ways. But do it because you're looking for knowledge, not because you're trying to find, you know, the Shangri-La of speed, where you're going to draw faster because you did it this way or that way. It's just, you're not going to find it. And you're going to spend what could end up being many, many years looking for something that doesn't exist. And I would hate to see you waste your time trying to worry about speed rather than worry about accuracy. By being accurate and working towards accuracy, your speed will just naturally come to you. Okay, I know I've said that a million times, and I'll keep saying it because I want to make sure that there's always that one individual out there that just, no matter how many times you say it, they're just going to be like, yeah, whatever. And hopefully they keep watching it, and then my words ring true. It just takes a while. So deal with it. Especially if you want good results. If you want to make crap, knock yourself out. All right. So I'm going to take a little break because my butt hurts, and I'm going to analyze this from a distance. That's another thing. Get up and walk away from this every, 30 minutes to an hour and look at it from a good distance. I'm so close to this right now. I'm about 2 feet away. I'm taking it all in, like almost like an ant walking across your face. I'm just too close. I need to back up and see this from a good 6 to 10 feet away so I can take it all in, and then I just compare it from a distance. So I'm like, wow, that looks like crap. Because things will just pop out that you otherwise wouldn't be able to see. All right.
Hamburgers.
Hamburgers, the cornerstone of any nutritious breakfast.
There's a place where lovers go to cry their troubles away, and they call it Lonesome Town, where the broken hearts stay. You can buy a dream or two to last you all through the years, and the only price you pay is a heart full of tears. Going down to Lonesome Town, where the broken hearts stay. Going down to Lonesome Town to cry my troubles away. In the town of broken dreams, the streets are filled with regret. Maybe down in Lonesome Town I can learn to forget. Maybe down in Lonesome Town I can learn to forget. Lonesome Town.
All right, everybody, I'm back with another quick segment. I'm going to continue work on this Samuel Jackson charcoal drawing. And again, I'm using Strathmore drawing paper. It's white paper. I know in the video it looks almost like a yellowed out brown or something, but it's just the quality of lighting I have to deal with. So up to this point, what have I done? I've worked from left, top left to about bottom right. Again, because I'm right-handed, that way my hand doesn't have to sit on top of previous work as much. And you'll notice I had started with, and just so you know, the reason I'm doing this clip, I just want to make sure that I recap, because, you know, this is a lot of practice and it gets confusing for people. So I just want to kind of almost restate what I've already said, just as a reminder, and so people understand how important it is to work in that way or something similar. So I started with my, again, I'm using the General's brand charcoal pencils. I'll show you one here. They look like this. I'm sure you've all seen them. You can get a kit at Michael's or order one online or something from like Jerry's Artorama. I like ordering from Jerry's. I've been using them for many, many years, so I'm not getting any money from that. I'm not getting any endorsement. Mr. Jerry, if you want to pay me, I'll gladly take your money. But I'm using the HB Hard is what I do for the initial sketch and the overall beginning stage, because it's harder and it gives you a lighter line. And I was able to start putting in what I would call the foundation work for the values. Okay, remember, values is your darks and lights. In other words, your shading. And that just kind of gave me like a map of where things are going to be. And of course, it's far too light for where I want it, you know, far too light for where it's for the value that it actually should be. But at least it lets me start in a very secure, very safe manner without worrying about having to erase because I went too dark, which is just a nightmare. You don't want to have to go through that. So here I'm just applying another layer of the HB Hard as I work my way to my right or the subject's left. I'm just kind of working my way through it, putting down another layer, making sure things line up correctly. I see the light kind of doing this number right here, and right around here it changes from this lighter gray, middle gray tone, into this darker gray. So where is that? And so I can just plumb line it like so, and it's just to the right of the corner of the eye. So right around there, and that's more or less where I got it. So that lets me know that I'm comparing what I'm doing to what I'm seeing, and I'm trying to make sure I do it right. By doing this lighter layer, it also lets me control the values more accurately and helps me to produce form accurately. What is form? Form is basically when you give it life, when you go from, you know, you're working on a two-dimensional plane, right? That's what this paper is flat, but you give the illusion of it being round, like the dome of the skull and the roundness of the eye and the muzzle underneath the nose to the chin area, that, you know, doing this thing, and the cheeks being rounded out. That's all an illusion. We're basically magicians when we're working with our hands here doing art. That's what we are as artists. We're really just magicians. We're fooling the brain of the viewer into believing something that is not true. So to add form, you need a certain sense of depth. And so that depth comes in the way of shading. So I did that lighter layer, and then I went darker layers, and then I see it around the corner of his eye a little bit darker here, and then the muscle tissue continues to be darker around here, but then lighter this way. So to show that little bit of darkness being a little darker, I'm going to go over to my soft. And today, because I've been using soft pretty extensively, I'm going to go for the first time into the darkest one I have, which is the extra soft. Okay, and again, I got many pencils. I buy them by the boxes because I do a lot of this. I wouldn't suggest you buy by the box. Just buy a kit, unless you plan to do a lot of drawing or you have a way of selling them or something like that. But anyways, I'm just adding a little bit more of this darkness in there because I want that to recede more. Now that's a little too dark. So I need to make sure that, remember, like I said in that previous video, the values that are similar over here need to be similar over here. Like you can't have this be that amount of dark, which is pretty much the same thing as right here next to the cheek, and then on your drawing have them be two different things. That's why your drawings will look bizarre. You'll have one area really dark and another area that should be the same amount of darkness be a lot lighter. And you're like, man, why can't, my eyes don't stick out as much, or it doesn't look round, or whatever your issue might be. Things just doesn't look right, even though you did a pretty good job at drawing. It's because your values are kind of like all over the place. So they need to be whatever they are here. This is truth. This is life right here. You need to just simulate that as best you can over here, by just comparing what you see in your subject and to one area in your subject, saying, hey man, that's really dark. So that really dark area is also really dark in this other area. And so you try to just keep those similar on your drawing. So you go to those areas in your drawing and you just try to keep them similar. And I know I said that before, but I find that repetition, both in your practice and for me making these videos, repeating myself is what really helps it to teach you, because people will hear it and for whatever reason the brain tends to ignore that information, not on a conscious level. It's just too much information sometimes if you're first starting out in this, and you end up ignoring in the sense that you just can't absorb it all. And that's where practice comes in. And you can see by adding that amount of dark charcoal, it really made this area a lot darker, and it gave a sense of that form. Now I don't know how well it shows up on the video, but here sitting in front of it, only a foot and a half away, it's really looking receded and then coming out. So I'm really liking that a lot. And I went over to my stump. What's the difference between my stump and these brushes you've been seeing me use? Okay, so the stump, it being a solid, it's basically like newsprint or paper rolled up. Okay, and there's different sizes. This happens. I don't like the little tiny itsy bitsy one, but I just grabbed the first one I saw. This just happened to be in front of me, so I grabbed this one. So don't go by size or anything. This works. And it's being a lot stiffer, it's more aggressive, and then it'll blend more than, say, a softer brush like this, which is more like it's a painting brush, but I wouldn't call it a watercolor brush because they tend to be a little too soft, but it's like a soft brush, just not as soft as a watercolor brush. And then these are more like a bristle brush, this one, and I'll show you the other one I got. The other two that I got right here, and you can see, let me put them together so you guys can see, just so you can see what I'm doing here. These two I've been using them for years. These two over here, these two right here. Okay, let me move it over to the white side of my paper so I can, hopefully you can see that. And this is it looks like a cat's tongue because it's kind of like flat, right? Let me turn it this way. You see it's flat, but it has the corners kind of chopped off, and it becomes rather roundish, like that, like the tongue on a cat. It's called a filbert. Okay, I just use that whether it's a flat brush or filbert. I just use that because it's wider than a round brush. Now, if you notice, I don't know how close I can get and keep it in focus, but look at this one. It looks like almost like a pyramid. It's really sharp. That's just from many years or drawing, I should say, of blending. Whereas here's the exact same brush. Let me see if I can hopefully put them together. These two are the exact same brush. It's just that this one is a little newer than this one, and you can still see how long the hairs are when I put them together. This one a lot longer, and it's still nice and round. It looks like I just went to the store and bought this because this one hasn't been used as much. It's almost the same age. It's just wasn't used as much as this one. This one just sat around for a while, but this one's been used so much. You can see how pointy it is. That's just the hairs wasting away as I rub on the different paper surfaces over the years. So this one will eventually look like this, I don't know, a year, 10 years, whatever from now. And then this one here, it's you can see it's not too soft. I'm not sure that shows up in the video well, but it's not hard. You just don't want something to scratch your surface because it's so stiff. So you don't want some old dried brush because that's just going to ruin your drawing. But you don't want something so soft like, for example, these cheapy little Michaels brushes that I bought They look like it's almost like a mascara brush. My daughters would use to put on makeup. I don't know if it's mascara. I don't use makeup, so I wouldn't know. But you know those soft like makeup brushes. It's like that kind of softness. See that? It's like a big mop brush, really soft. I don't blend with this. This is not a blending brush. It's just too large. I can't control it. This is so when I erase with my little clicky eraser, this stuff will leave residue, you know, the little eraser bits that come off. And so I just go like this and I'll just flick that off. I'm trying to avoid using my hand because your hand can smudge your work really bad. And you're just gonna ruin it. So this one is it's softer than these, but not as soft as like a watercolor brush. So it's something in between. And it's just bigger. So this is my large, this would be my medium, and then these two would be my soft, so I can, or my small, so I can get into the little tiny areas. So these, obviously being tighter, smaller little brushes, I can get into little tiny areas, like, for example, the bag of the eye, right next to his eye right there. If I were to try to go in there with a large brush, it would just, you know, it would just be too much. It'd be too large. I wouldn't be able to control the direction of where things were going. And so all I do is just apply it to the paper like so, and I just blend away. And that really just gave me that nice blend. And again, I don't know how well it's showing up on film, not film, on the video there, but you can now see me using my larger one. And then I got one of those cheapy 99-cent brushes they use for like gessoing a board or something like that. And that's if you're gonna do like a large area. You just wanna kind of soften the whole drawing down like so. Okay, and I'll do that sometimes. That's relatively rare for me to do it, but sometimes I'll do it. And that basically lets me blend things out and see how things are working or not working. And here when I added that nice extra soft charcoal, I blended in, and now this became a little bit richer and darker and helps to push back and recede that area further back, and it leaves this area looking slightly lighter, therefore producing a sense of form. Now obviously I'm still not done. As you can see, I'm working very comfortably, and I move my camera to my left. I've been filming from the other side, but I needed to move my body physically over this way so I can now work on the left side of his face. So I put my camera over to the left, so that's why I got a different point of view. And I also put the photograph over on that side because just a minor thing, but you know, don't discount your physical comfort when you're drawing or painting or doing any craft. You don't want to sit in some sort of pretzel position, physically uncomfortable, because your work's gonna look like crap. So physically you need to be comfortable. You know, you gotta use a comfortable chair, get in the right angle, whatever. And something that I've had happen to me is paper cuts. See how the paper keeps lifting? You can see the shadow on my sketchbook. If I push it down, it keeps popping up, right? And when I had it on this side, I kept getting paper cuts on the side of my hand because it would keep, you know, when I had on this side was lifted up. I kept having the palm of my hand scrape up against the paper as I would move my hand up and down. I would just get that perfect angle and then slice my hand open, and it just became a pain in the butt. So I brought it over here, and I could still use it as a reference. And you might have seen in one of my clips where I was playing with the nose, when I started doing the nose area, I actually brought it down slightly lower at the scale that I'm drawing at. And I'll tell you, I got big hands, so this is probably, I want to say, about a 9 to 10 inch head, something like that. So it's smaller than life size. I'd say it's probably about 3/4 life size, which is a good size to stay with. I wouldn't go much bigger than that for other reasons I've covered in other videos, but it's about the span of my thumb to middle finger right there. You see that? And so that's probably about 10 inches or so, which is, you know, almost twice as big as the actual photograph reference that I'm using, okay? About, I don't know, 40% bigger or something. So try to stay about that size or smaller, okay? And this is it's 18 by 24 in height, okay, inches. It's just so you know the size. And you can see on the neck how it still looks sketchy and scratchy looking. That's because my initial pencil sketch where I was trying to put down material with the HB hard. Then I moved up to a medium, so it's quite a bit darker. And then I just went over it lightly with the soft and started adding some value. And then I started just kind of playing around, getting rid of the strokes by doing this and just kind of blending the strokes in there. Now, you're not going to blend them all in, but it will soften it. And then with the throat here, the Adam's apple area, you see it's sticking out a little bit, and therefore it's catching some light. As light as that is compared to the surrounding area, you have to remember where this is. That is not white. You wouldn't want that as bright as white. In other words, I don't want to have it the color of my paper because it would stand out too much. It would look bizarre. You want to make sure that this is grayed in. So I just kind of shaped it out, and then I just go over it with my brush as it picks up some of the funky charcoal that's on there on the surrounding area. And it'll just dirty that area up and keep it from being too bright. It'll just kind of soften it and make it look more like this, where it's brighter than the surrounding area, but it's not super bright like direct lighting. Okay, so be careful not to make that too bright. The cheek area, this area right around here, I'm gonna keep at close to the paper's color or whiteness of the paper, but all the area around it, I want to make sure I kill the white of the paper and just hit it with my brush. Again, my brush is a lot gentler than my stump. If I were to go into these areas with my stump would just apply too much of the charcoal and it would just ruin it and make it too dark. Okay, and that comes from experience with your tools, you know, getting used to using certain brushes, you know, and you don't have to buy the Artist Loft brand that they sell at Michael's. It's a cheap brand, but it works for this. It worked for this just fine. It's my preferred brand to go to because it's inexpensive and they work. And I use it in my painting too, but mainly the ones that I showed you, those green handled ones, those are the ones that I get from Michael's. And now there was, I don't know if you probably couldn't see it, but there was kind of like a little bit of an edge right around here from previous pencil strokes. And what I did, because again, this stump being more aggressive. Now, because a stump, by aggressive, I mean that it's stiffer than a brush. That's all I mean by aggressive. I'm not aggressively, you know, stabbing my paper and, you know, getting in there and rubbing hard. I never apply a lot of pressure. My pressure is 0 to little. I usually just apply, the pressure is equivalent to the weight of the stump or brush that I have in my hand. That's it. And so now I'm applying some of this charcoal, or moving it around, I should say, not applying. And it's helping to blend out those hard lines that I'm finding because of previous strokes of my pencil. I'm just going to continue that, and I'll just continue doing that, and up to the point of this video that I'm making right now for you. Okay, and I'm going to probably break this up into several videos, maybe break it up into one video where the whole thing is contained into one super fast video, you know, one of those fast forwarded 8-minute videos, 5-minute videos, just so you can kind of see like beginning to end. And then probably have a series of just all the individual little ones up to this point. I probably have about, I'd say, just as a wild guess, I haven't actually added it up, but I want to say there's probably about 7 hours or so, maybe less, of time invested into this video, or into this drawing, I should say. Now, that includes 3 hours of drawing, where you can see the little sketch that I got on the left side. When I first started this series of video of Samuel Jackson, I didn't videotape the actual drawing process, me getting all the proportions. I just showed you the initial sketch because that was just I just drew that off camera just because it was just something else I was working on. And then I went into what to do next. Okay, so it was 3 hours of drawing because I was explaining it to someone, not because it actually took me 3 hours to draw it. It took me 3 hours because I was explaining it to some people. But the actual drawing stage probably could have been done just as an average, depending if I'm having a good day or a bad day, say an hour. It probably would have taken me less than that, but let's just say an hour. So at the end of this series, I'll try to remember to post the amount of hours that it actually took me to do the entire, give you like an estimate of what it took me from a blank piece of paper to the finished product. I would probably estimate it to be somewhere around 10 to 12 hours, maybe something like that. And most of that, like I said in the previous video, most of that time was shading. Okay. And again, a lot of that time also goes into me doing all these little narrations, my little commentary, trying to explain myself through it. So if I didn't have to videotape this, if I didn't have a whole explanation behind this, and I just took a blank piece of paper and just started a drawing like this exact drawing or something similar, I can just tell you right now, it probably, and let's just say I'm having a good day and I got enough sleep and everything else, I could probably do it, just to give you a nice safe round number, probably 6 hours, maybe 8. So in the future, you'll know that a drawing like this, of this level of complexity, this size, with charcoal on this type of paper, I'm counting on probably about 5 to 8 hours, depending on some other factors, but say somewhere between 5 to 8 hours from beginning blank paper to a finished product. So I hope that helps you out. I'm going to continue to film. I'm going to shut my mouth now, and I'm just going to continue to film just the shading part of it. I'm going to continue with that, and hopefully you have a deeper understanding of what I got going on. And if you got any questions, just message me and just, hey man, I don't know what the hell you're talking about when you said XYZ, or if I confuse you on something, or you want me to go more in depth into something, post a message and I'll try my best to address it. Watch the videos. There's nothing more annoying than a question that has been answered several times with the same video, but somebody didn't actually bother to either pay attention or they skipped over something. So try to actually watch it, because most of the time I think I addressed, I think I tend to address everything, if not most of the questions, just from experience and having people ask me questions in the past off camera. I try my best to answer those questions for you. All right, so good luck out there. Remember to keep practicing. I'm going to go right back into shading and get back to work.
the sun. And when his daddy would visit, he'd come along. When they gathered around and started talking, Cousin Billy would take me walking. Out through the backyard we go walking. Then he looked into my eyes. Lord knows to my surprise, the only one who could ever reach me was the son of a preacher man. The only boy who could ever teach me was the son of a preacher man. Yes, he was. He was. Yes, he was. Being good isn't always easy, no matter how hard I try. When he started sweet talking to me, he'd come and tell me everything is alright. He'd kiss and tell me everything's alright. Can I get away again tonight? The only one who could ever reach me was the son of a preacher man. The only boy who could ever teach me was the son of a preacher man. Yes, he was.